What if I told you that the reason we experience pain in this world is so that we can bring the true light of wisdom and compassion to everyone we come across to truly change this world? Hello, my wonderful friends. Welcome back to Thriveda, your home for everything mind, body, spirit, so we can live our most inspirational and empowering lives. And we have a deep topic today, so let's get straight into it. Sure, on one hand, pain is an indicator that we're doing something wrong. For example, if the stove is too hot, and we touch the stove, we now know that we should probably not keep touching the stove. But on the other hand, if we were to hold our hand on that stove, now we have a lesson, one that is so powerful and embodied, you can say, in us, that we're able to express it with a fervor, with a passion, with compassion perhaps, and change and help the lives of others. So hopefully not everyone's getting third-degree burns here. Truly, what doesn't kill us not only makes us stronger in the literal sense, if you're going to a gym, for example, but it makes us stronger on the emotional, on the spiritual levels as well. It's no surprise that I myself, as well as every human being probably watching these videos, has had a degree of pain in their life. In fact, it's not fair for anyone to say truly my pain has been worse, because when you're a child, for example, and you have an adult yelling at you, you don't realize the exact significance of the moment. You just know that that is the scariest thing on many levels, because for one, this might be your ticket to food, to safety, to life itself in many ways. So pain is very subjective. What may be painful for one person might be much less painful for someone else. And my own personal case, I can say for various reasons, the majority of my life felt a bit painful, if you will. And now I have a completely different understanding of what that means, but I'll give you a little Cliff Notes summary as to what I mean when I say this. I was born in the former Soviet Republic of Georgia, a little country south of Russia, next to Armenia, Turkey, the Black Sea, and Azerbaijan, and the Caucasus Mountains, the South Slope specifically. And the first 3 years of my life I spent there. And while most people say they can't remember their early life that young, I can say that I can remember some things. And let's just say it wasn't a pleasant environment in the early 90s to be probably in just about any of the former Soviet republics. And hence, in my early stage of development, I believe I developed a fear, let's just say, of people and life in general. And my life, well into my early 20s, I believe, was a way to discover how to dispel the deeply entrenched fear I had in my body, the trauma, if you will, from explosions and whatever else was going on around that time. When I came to the United States, according to my parents, I learned English through commercials, but I also didn't have a grounding in American culture. So growing up well into my late teens, and I would even say early 20s, I was discovering these concepts, these shows, these cultural narratives that everyone else around me grew up with. And though I became an American citizen at the age of 17, I didn't feel like a true American until much later. And I always felt, perhaps as a redhead, when I did have more hair, I felt a little bit separated from my peers, let's just say, for those couple reasons, and probably more also because of the amount of tension I had in my body, being a naturally kind of passionate, hot-headed person, shout out to all the other Georgians who can relate, I found later on in my life that it was very difficult to breathe. In fact, that was actually a common theme because of the rigidity and perhaps even the trauma held in my physical vehicle, my body. I wasn't able to fully express myself. And I think this is a very common thing for probably actually the majority of Westerners, especially those who have experienced early childhood issues of such, which frankly is probably most of us. So this concept that trauma lives in the physical body was made popular by Wilhelm Reich, and it is known as muscular armoring. The idea being that when we experience something scary or stimulating, we essentially tighten up in the musculature, and that actually disables our full expression, our full flow in the future, unless we deal with that trauma, because the subconscious records everything. So now, how did I begin to turn the wheel the other direction? How did I stop the ball from rolling in its tracks and have it go down another lane? One that I am infinitely more proud of, because I now understand that that early pain was truly like transmuting, in the alchemical sense, lead into gold, because I now have a deeper connection with myself, a deeper connection to source, to compassion and wisdom, and I feel like I can help many people out there, which is why I make these videos. But number one, how I changed things for myself, I took radical responsibility. When we are in the victim mindset, which I was in the majority of my life, why me, God, why me? I eventually realized that no matter what the equation is, no matter what the circumstance is, there is some component of two having to do the tango, so to speak. One person can't really do tango on their own. It takes two. And hence, when I took responsibility for at least my part in the equation, I now saw, just like the yin-yang symbol of the black and white vortex revolving around each other, the masculine, the feminine, that by changing my own state, I could affect the opposite end of that equation. And while I could say, sure, 50% of this dance is me, why not, I thought, take even more radical responsibility for every situation, while respecting the free will of others, I believe is very important. At the same time, by taking as much responsibility for the situation as we can at the very least find lessons in the equation and how to not repeat past suffering in doing so. So to truly finally get out of the victim mindset, one of the most powerful steps we can take is responsibility. Number two, I organized the chaos of my environment, because an extension of our mind is our immediate environment, and where we find ourselves and who we find ourselves with. You will notice, perhaps, if you walk into the house of, let's say, a disheveled artist, you might expect there to be clothes and art items strewn about, to find, maybe trash and pizza boxes, all these kinds of things, because our environment is an extension of us. While this is a deeper concept, ultimately, that there is no such thing as separation, at the very least, it's a great way to start is to begin to clean up your environment, begin to organize your room, for example. And while this might sound a little OCD for some, one of the exercises I used to do for myself to keep myself organized mentally as well as physically was that I would align my shoes, for example, that I would place by the door, with the corners of the room itself. I would align my wallet when I placed it on the table. I would put everything into their proper slot, if you will. And hence, anytime I notice a little bit of a shift of items, I knew I was not being present, that I was allowing chaos to rule me. And while everything is born of chaos in a sense, we would do well to actually get our chaos versus organization, our yin versus yang percentages and dance in check. Number 3, and while I organize my environment to ultimately organize my own mind, I also found a way to organize the mind inversely to actually organize the environment, and that was, yes, meditation. You caught me. You knew I was going here, didn't you? Because through meditation, I realized that I am not simply this body, because what is this body was constantly shifting and changing day to day. But when I would sit for an extended period of time in silence, I would realize that there's something beyond this body, an eternal presence, a underlying energy, perhaps even a soul, one might say. In fact, it was through discovering that there is more to the body that I realized that there is more truly to all of existence itself. And I want you to try a little exercise here. Get quiet. Begin to breathe nice and deep, inhaling through the nose and exhaling. And then ask yourself in this relaxed state any question. Start with a yes or no question and see what your own body suggests. You might notice a positive feeling suggesting a yes, or you might notice a bit of a negative feeling, and this takes some sitting with your own body to really begin to grasp this. But through meditation, we become so understanding of our inner experience that we find little notches of struggle, of trauma, of muscular armoring in the body, and you'll often even get a visual representation of when that trauma was lodged into your body as you meditate. So over time, you begin to unravel the used, the crinkled energies of the body to finally be able to expand and express yourself to the fullest you. And if you want to start, as I did, with some guided meditation, I'm going to link one of my favorite guided meditations that I recorded recently down below. And I think you'll find it super beneficial. These are topics that I can literally talk about for hours and hours and days and years probably. Hence why I made a YouTube channel, to do exactly that. But ultimately, I want you to hang on, because you are getting closer and closer to turning your own personal lead of experience, of pain, of trauma into something more illustrious, into something like gold, because that is what true alchemy is. And you are well on your way to doing exactly that. The more pain that we are ultimately going through, the more change we will bring to the world in the positive sense if we just keep going. I am behind you 110%. If you ever need any support, please do write me, and I will see you on the next one. Oh, and press the like button, please. See ya.